Hello and welcome to Plus Sports on Plus TV Africa. My name is Mikhail Tinubu. As always, I'm happy to welcome you on the show. Now, we usually try to discuss some Nigerian local stories happening in sports. And if you've been paying attention to the local league, you know there's been a lot of overturning of certain structures that have been in place for a long time. I'm talking, of course, of the IMC, the Interim Management Committee, which many people had a strong dislike to the potential for this supposed independent body separate from the rest of the sport having such huge say over what goes on within it, rescheduling matches, penalizing teams and clubs. But you cannot argue that when things are bad, and we've been talking about it for years, that things are bad in our local league and it needs to improve. Doing something, doing anything must seem like a good idea to administrators. And unfortunately, we've become so jaded at the idea of changes in policy that we do not expect anything better than what we're already getting. So we treat the incoming situation, the incoming policies, as though they are the enemy, as though it is bound to fail, as though it is going to worsen an already bad situation. If it's already very bad, if as they say, when you're at rock bottom, there's only one place to go, and that's up. At the very least, if it's going to remain bad, it's going to stay lateral. And we aren't too far into the overhaul of the old structure to determine if the IMC's management of the local league is just as bad as before, or is even worse in any way that you can subjectively tell. But hopefully, this, as the name suggests, Interim Management Committee, is just a bridge gap to the next phase of development in our local league. I hope to see that soon. I'm sure all of you want to take pride in the local league and have a reason to take your families out during the weekends to go and watch these local leagues. Football, sports, it can be a meeting place for the rich and the poor, for the comfortable and the not so comfortable. Perhaps we've been uncomfortable for so long, we've gotten so used to it that we do not expect to ever be comfortable appreciating our own local football leagues. Now, after defeating Smart City FC 1-0 on March Day 5 of the 2022-2023 Nigerian National League (NNL) at Ijebu Ode's Otunba Dipo Dina Stadium, Gateway United are back on the winning track thanks to an impressive second half performance. Following the game's cancellation on Sunday at the 44th minute mark due to the interference from the opposing crowd, Gateway United picked up where it left off and justly took the lead from the penalty spot in the 58th minute. Following a foul on Olajide Mustafa in the area, the hosts were given a penalty and Ahmed Agada converted it by sending Oremade Olawale the wrong way. Oremade Olawale in goal for the visitors stopped Tunde Aziz's thundering strike from 25 yards out that would have made it 2-0. Gateway United will now go on a mid-season NNL break, but are back in Federation Cup action against Kwara United next Wednesday, 26th of April, 2023. I am joined on the line by Monday Thomas to discuss this story and many more like it. Good evening, Monday.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So once again, a pleasant time to talk sports. And I'm excited about what is happening in the local league. You started by talking about the LMC, and you made mention of how football can get to connect. Of course, football is a sport that gets to unite the poor, the rich, the older, the younger. I mean, it's a place where we get to enjoy ourselves. But football in Nigeria is not so attractive. Yes, we've got to be brutally honest with that particular one. So you don't get to see people go out in support of this because I'll tell you something. People will always support something that is quality. People will always patronize something that they feel it is beneficial to them. I mean, what benefit will someone gain going out to watch a game where he knows that this particular game can be influenced by the home referees, by the home supporters, and something like this? But thankfully, in the NNL and as well as the NPFL this season, we've been seeing a smooth run, all thanks to the interim management committee since replacing the LMC. I think I've noticed some kind of improvement in the NPFL, and I just pray and hope this gets better and better.
Well, before I talk on that, just to say, impeccably dressed as always, Monday Thomas. I fear you might give our audiences the wrong impression of who's actually hosting this show.
I'm not here for that.
But as we've said, the IMC is a way to change the old guard and perhaps fix some of the problems we've always complained about and potentially bridge the gap between the old and the new and take us to a new era of Nigerian football league. But we'll come back to that just in a moment. Meanwhile, the NNL game between Gateway United, Gateway United had been on a slump and now they're back with a win. I think the problem with football nowadays, because once upon a time, I remember you go on a 5-game winning, maybe drawing run. If you get a win in your most recent game, no one clamors and says, wow, you must be back. But that seems to be the nature of football now. Fans want to believe that just because you've won this game, you've turned a corner. And the next game is bound to be a win. Are increased expectations damaging the nature of the sport? And now, of course, it's not limited to just the NNL or the MPFL. It's also in Europe. It's also in Asia. It's wherever there is football being played and people are committed to seeing their teams win. Is Gateway United, have they turned a corner, as some people would like to believe?
I mean, I wouldn't really blame people who tend to put pressure on a team, especially teams that have not gone the right way, especially for the home supporter. But it's good to see that Gateway United. I mean, a game that should have been concluded on Sunday was completed some days later. But of course, it was in favor of Gateway United. I think football is a game of momentum. I mean, every sport is a game of momentum. If you win your previous game, you have a chance to, of course, win the next one because they say you're as good as your last game. I mean, if your last game was a good one, then you are bound to improve on your performance. But it's not always so because in your next game you might get to play a tougher opponent than you did in your previous one. But it's good to see Gateway United. I mean, the NNL is a team or is a league of about I think 35 teams, and they are all hunting to return to the NPFL, which is a top flight league. So everyone will want to do everything possible to make sure they play in the top flight, make sure they get more audience because the Nigerian League, the top flight league, is the league people get to watch them more. It's the league where sponsors are looking out for to pick out one or two players to maybe export to other countries for football.
With what you've just said about football, and indeed most sports being about momentum, especially competitive sports that play back to back in a sort of marathon style for a long period of time within what would be categorized as a season. Is this the best time for Gateway United to be going on a 1 week break? Or should they be facing someone like this weekend so that they can capitalize on that momentum you speak about?
I mean, I think the break is not in favor of Gateway United because now that they've gotten on the break, now that they've gotten a win, they should continue putting their foot on the throttle, full gas, and to see how they can implement their winning strategies the more in the previous game. But now, in the next games coming up, but now they are going on a compulsory break. The NNL, everyone is going to relax. It's also going to favor them when it comes to recuperating and also re-strategizing. But if you look at it this way, if they continue playing, because I've seen how great a team was before the break and returning from the break, they're not able to gel any longer. It feels like they need to play more games. But if they stay in one place, if they stay in camp, if they know that they have much work to do, knowing that they're just returning to winning ways, and in order to stay in winning ways, they need to stay in camp, they need to stay focused, and of course, see how they can stay on the winning
All
ways.
right. Before we move on from this, I just want to ask one more question, and I'm going to preface it by tooting my own horn. I used to play basketball very well, I might add. And what I found while playing basketball was that it was a very stressful, unrelenting sport. You go across and back and forth. There's this exercise they call suicides, where you just run from one side of the court to the other to build up endurance, to build up fitness. And I always found that no matter how well I played in the first match I might have played in, when I took a 5-minute break, and I emphasize 5 minutes, coming back for my second wind, I could go longer. Now, Gateway United are going to have more than 5 minutes break. But no matter how much training, no matter how much work they think they're going to put in behind closed doors in training, it does not replicate the conditions of a live match. Match fitness is truly only built in playing matches. And speaking of momentum, you said it might be the best thing for them to have played the next match as quickly as possible. What do you estimate would be the right way to keep motivation high between now and that next match next Wednesday?
All right. I said something. I think I answered that question previously, although it didn't come as a question. So this is what I have to say. I mean, you are right. I mean, a game of basketball is something I love to watch, and I don't know how to play, but I enjoy it a lot, especially the NBA players. And we need to talk later about your basketball career. But for your question, I think the right strategy they need to employ is for them to stay in camp. I mean, for them to continue practicing, for them to continue planning, for them to continue using various tactics. I mean, it's a break. Many of them will want to go see their family. Many of them will be traveling around Nigeria. Maybe some of them are not even Nigerians, maybe the bordering nations. And I don't think this is advisable for them. I mean, they should stay in camp. They should stay in Putin and ensure, even if they want to go for a break, they can just go for something very light and understand that the goal is to stay on winning ways. Football is a very stressful sport. Football is a very tactical, a very intellectual sport, and you need to plan ahead of your next game. And now, in order for you to plan, you also need to stay focused. So I would have preferred that they had played their next game immediately, but now the NNL has called for a break, so they need to stay in camp. They need to stay working. They need to stay ready.
The whole NNL has gone on a break, so I suppose the team they will be playing will be going through the exact same conditions of not having played in about a week.